The farmer breaks down upon finding disabled child buried in forest holding secret. It was a morning shrouded in fog, those thick blankets that hung low over the countryside. Thomas, a man made of iron and ambition, flew in his private helicopter over the lush green patches of England, his kingdom of real estate spreading below him like a monopoly board. Even here, among the towering oaks and roaming sheep, an unsettling emptiness gripped him. The silence was almost deafening. His usual entourage of deals and numbers faded into a dull hum. He had decided to inspect a piece of land, an untouched paradise he believed was ripe for development. Touching down near a dense thicket, he stepped out, the crisp air biting at his senses. It all felt too calm, too perfect, and for a man like him, it sent a chill up his spine. As he wandered deeper into the woods, the canopies above blocked the sunlight, casting eerie shadows that danced like ghosts. A sense of dread crept in, wrapping awe. Fear surged through him, and without thinking, he dug. The cold dirt flew past him, hands trembling. Was she breathing? When he finally grasped her, pulling her out from her makeshift grave, she looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Clutched tightly in her grasp was a locket, partially open, revealing a photograph of a woman. The woman, he realized in agonizing clarity, was Marina, his long-lost love. His heart dropped. The adrenaline pounded through his veins as he rushed her to the nearest hospital, praying against the heavy weight of fate. Inside the sterile walls of the emergency room, the chaos erupted around him, but he could only focus on the girl. Sophie, they told him. Her name is Sophie. And then came the bombshell, a wave of truth crashing over him. She was his daughter, born of that passionate affair he abandoned for his ambitions. Guilt gnawed at his insides as the doctors worked feverishly, their faces blurring in his periphery. Silence draped over him. Thomas, caught between his desire for redemption and hasty judgments, faced a new reality. Not only would he have to fight for his daughter, but he'd also have to confront the dark secrets of Marina's family. Secrets that could unravel everything he thought he understood about love and fatherhood. Peering into Sophie's frail eyes, he felt a flicker of hope. She needed him now more than ever. But as the walls began to close in, the question haunted him. Would he fight hard enough to keep her? Or would the ghosts of his past tear their fragile bond apart forever? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without notice. Just give that red button down below a quick check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave a powerful like. That helps me a lot with the algorithm. The weight of his past and the urgency of his present pressed down on him like the fog that first brought him to these woods. Suddenly, a loud commotion broke through the sterile calm of the hospital room. The door swung open violently. Voices shouted, angry and accusatory. Thomas spun around, his heart racing. It was Marina's family, all of them. Her brother, sister, and her father. A grim figure with a hard gaze that bore into him. "What the hell are you doing here?" Her brother spat, stepping forward, fists clenched. Thomas bristled, ready to defend himself and the life he was trying to claim for Sophie. But just then, the room slipped into a surreal quiet. All eyes turned towards the nurse entering the room. Her expression a mix of urgency and dread. "Excuse me, everyone. We need to talk," she said, her voice steady yet filled with a heavy gravity. "There's something we need to address regarding Sophie's condition." All of them, even the enraged relatives, fell silent. Thomas could feel the cold grip of dread tightening around his throat. "What is it?" he asked, his voice trembling. The nurse shifted uncomfortably. "We've run tests, and we found something unexpected in her blood work. Something really concerning." "What do you mean?" he demanded. "Sophie isn't just sick. It appears—" She hesitated, as if the words were too heavy to drop. "It appears she has a rare genetic condition, and it raises serious questions about her paternity." The air in the room froze. Everything stopped. The world narrowed into a tight focus. "What are you talking about?" Thomas stammered. Confusion flooding his mind, the nurse continued, "It suggests that this condition is inherited. And well, she can't have come from you, Mr. Harris. It's unlikely given what we know about your family history." The accusation hung like a guillotine above his head. His heart pounded, panic threatening to consume him. "No! That can't be true!" He felt the ground shift under him. The walls closing in. He turned, searching for answers in the faces around him. Marina's family stared back, a mix of shock and victory igniting in their eyes. "Maybe you're not the one who needs to be here, after all," Marina's sister whispered, a sneer creeping onto her lips. Thomas's mind reeled. Had he been chasing a ghost this whole time? At that moment, another figure appeared in the doorway. A woman, striking and familiar. Thomas squinted to see her clearly. It was Marina's mother, her demeanor poised, but her eyes filled with a haunting sorrow. This can't happen," she said softly, almost to herself. "Mom, what do you know?" Marina's brother demanded, his voice rising. "Enough," she pleaded, looking between them. "You should all sit down." But Thomas felt the walls crumbling around him. Family ties, lost love, and now this shocking twist. It was all spiraling. Everything he thought he knew was slipping through his fingers. The locket Sophie held fell from her hand, clattering to the floor, as if declaring a war of its own. As the pieces began to unravel, he realized he was poised on the brink of a deeper, darker truth. What if Sophie truly wasn't his daughter? Would he fight for a child that wasn't his? Would those ghosts of the past finally come to claim him? The nurse looked down at the ground, and in that silence, Thomas felt an overwhelming urge to scream. A scream that said, who was he fighting for? What had he truly lost? Thomas felt the weight of the nurse's words pressing down on him, each syllable tightening his chest. Not his daughter? His eyes darted around the room, the faces of Marina's family, a blend of anger and satisfaction. He was on shaky ground, drowning in a storm of emotions. Panic swirled in his mind, a cacophony of voices screaming for answers. Then, just as he was about to respond, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. The emergency room door burst open, slamming against the wall. A figure stumbled in, an older man, wild-eyed and covered in mud, his clothes torn. It was Matt, Thomas's estranged brother, his face a mask of distress. "Thomas!" he shouted, breathless and frantic. "You need to listen to me, now!" "What are you doing here?" Thomas snapped, confusion morphing into irritation. This isn't the time, Matt insisted, glancing nervously at the gathered family. I've got something important to tell you. It's about Marina. Thomas's heart pounded, confusion swirling into a storm of dread. What could you possibly know that is more important than this? He spat, gesturing to Sophie, still unconscious on the hospital bed. Everything! Matt's voice cracked, his eyes pleading. It's about Sophie, about you! Suddenly he stepped closer, lowering his voice. She's not just a child of the past, Thomas. She's linked to something greater. Something we tried to bury. Marina's family is hiding secrets, dark ones. Secrets that could destroy everything. What are you talking about? Thomas's grip tightened around the edge of the bed, his knuckles turning white. What do you mean? They think they're protecting you, but they're not. Marina, she wasn't just special in love. She had connections, ties to people who deal in things you never understood. Things that can twist the fates of us all. Before Thomas could process this new nightmare, a sharp gasp came from Marina's mother, who stepped forward, horrified. Matt, don't! She hissed, her face drained of colour. Don't hide it, he shot back, a spark igniting dangerous tension in the air. You've kept it from him long enough. Thomas felt the room tilt. What does she have to do with anything? Everything. Marina didn't just disappear that night. She was taken. We thought she was lost to us, but she had enemies, powerful ones. And now Sophie is caught in the middle. A chill swept through the room, the air thick with disbelief. Taken? Thomas echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. What are you saying? Listen, I had to see you after I heard what happened with Sophie. They know about her genetic condition. They've been watching the family for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. Marina wasn't just running away. She was protecting you both. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He staggered backward, grappling with the truth that wove itself through the air like smoke. Sophie, she's connected to them, he breathed, feeling the walls collapse around him. Panic surged, intermingled with a dawning horror. What had he stepped into? And just then, as if summoned by the unfolding chaos, a figure appeared in the doorway. Police officers! One of them stepped forward, his expression grave. Mr. Harris, we need to talk to you about your daughter. The silence in the room thickened, the air pregnant with uncertainty. Everything Thomas thought he knew began to fracture. Who could he trust? What was real anymore? As their eyes met, a shared fear hung between them, binding them in a tumultuous web that promised not just revelations, but a storm that could obliterate everything. Who are you, really? He whispered, fear echoing in his chest. As they approached, Thomas realized just how deep the secrets ran, and it terrified him. What had he unleashed? As the police officers stepped closer, a chill crept into the room, thickening the tension. Mr. Harris, one officer said, his voice steady but low. We need to talk to you about your daughter. Thomas's heart raced, dread swirling like a storm inside him. What about her? Is she okay? He managed to choke out. The officer exchanged glances with his partner, a look that sent an icy wave of fear crashing over Thomas. It's about her condition. Before he could finish, the door burst open again. A woman stormed in, a frantic blur of movement. Her wild hair framed a face twisted in urgency. It was Claire, Marina's best friend. "You have to listen to me. Now, it's not what it seems." "What do you mean?" Thomas barked, frustration boiling in him. It was becoming too much. As she approached, Claire locked eyes with him, a raw intensity radiating from her. "There's something critical you need to know about Sophie and Marina. Get to the point," Thomas shouted, shaking. "Marina's family isn't what they seem. They've been lying to you all. Not just about Sophie, about everything." Thomas felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. "What are you saying?" Claire took a shaky breath. "Marina wasn't just hiding. She was protecting you from the truth. She's a key to something dangerous." "Dangerous?" he echoed, closing his eyes against a wave of nausea. "Yes, you don't understand her condition. It's not just a genetic quirk. It's something far worse, a link to a criminal organization. One that Marina was deeply involved with. They're after her." Thomas stepped back, a sense of betrayal washing over him. "No, that can't be true." The police officers shifted, their expressions tightening with concern. "Sir, we need to take action if there's a threat to your daughter." "Shut up," he snapped, then turned back to Claire. "Why didn't you tell me this before? All those years, what was she afraid of?" "I didn't know the whole truth until recently. But I found things, secrets in her journals. They were hunting her down, people who wanted to use Sophie as leverage. She knew what was coming." The room swayed around him. All this time? Was all he'd built a lie? Sinking in dread, he recalled the locket Sophie held, the picture of Marina smiling. Just then, a beeping from the machines picked up, increasing in speed. Panic clawed at his throat. "What's happening?" The nurse rushed back in, her face pale. "Her heart rate is dropping! We need to stabilize her now!" Everyone's attention snapped to the bed where Sophie lay still. Machines beeped like warnings, urgency filling the air. The nurse buzzed around, calling for help. The police officer cleared his throat, stepping toward Thomas, whose mind was racing. "You need to make a decision." What decision?" His voice cracked. "Whether to protect her from this danger or call for backup. We don't know who is after her. It could already be too late." And just like that, the walls began to close in. It was no longer just about his daughter's health. It was about survival. Thomas felt sick. If she's not mine, why fight? That deep down, he knew he had to find her mother, to face whatever shadow loomed over them. Just then, a loud crash echoed down the hall, followed by shouts. Thomas's heart stopped. What was that? The police officers exchanged glances, their faces taut with urgency. "Stay here. Don't move." But as they turned to rush toward the sound, a heavy footfall came from the corridor, growing louder. Thomas felt a pulse of dread, an overwhelming fear that everything would unravel in moments. Then the door to the room swung wide open, and a figure stood silhouetted against the light. A shadow, long and ominous. "Hello, Thomas," they said, a familiar voice slicing through the tension like a blade. He took a step back, confusion gripping him. "You? I'm back," said the figure, stepping into the room, revealing a face that jolted him to his core. And I've come for what's mine. The world spun as disbelief washed over him. That face, the last person he expected to see, unsettled everything he thought he knew. What would happen next? Would this push him further into the depths of betrayal, or offer a flicker of hope amidst the chaos? The figure stepped into the room, and former Gabriella? The name slipped through his lips, an echo of a past he thought was buried deep. She stood there, her eyes burning with emotion, years etched into her face like hard lines of history. I didn't think, he began, but words evaporated. Surprise, she said, her voice laced with tension, a challenge hanging between them. The room shook, as if picking up on the charged air. Why are you here? His heart thundered, confusion twisting his gut. Everything spiraled. What do you want? The truth, Thomas. She stepped closer, her presence pulsing with urgency. You need to know. Sophie is part of something much bigger. Marina didn't just vanish. She was fighting against them. And now they'll come for her. The police officers stood stiff, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. Do you know what you're talking about? One of them demanded, as if it might prove some wild fantasy. Yes, Gabriella snapped, eyes like lanterns in the dark. I was there. I saw them. Marina was involved. It's why she went into hiding. Sophie is at the center of it all. Thomas felt the worlds collide in his mind. All those years of grief and guilt, and now this? His legs waded through a haze of disbelief. But she's a child. She's innocent. Drawing in a breath, Gabriella hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down. You don't understand. They believe Sophie holds a key, a link to a bloodline tied to something they want, something powerful. His thoughts lurched. The room felt impossibly small. Nearby, the alarms on Sophie's monitor blared louder, as if echoing his mounting panic. What do you mean, bloodline? Before she could respond, a voice shouted from the hallway, breaking like glass shattering. We need to get her out. Now! A team of paramedics rushed past, a whirlwind of red and white uniforms. They moved towards Sophie, urgency etched in their faces. Thomas's heart raced. What's happening? He yelled, grabbing a nearby nurse's arm. Where are you taking her? CT scan, the nurse replied, breathless. Something's wrong. We need to move fast. Thomas released her, desperate, knowing they were running out of time. Wait! You can't just... But the chaos had erupted again, and people swarmed around him. In the midst of it all, Gabriella locked eyes with him. They're coming, Thomas! We need to prepare! And just like that, the room morphed into a battleground of emotions. The relatives recoiled, confusion spreading like wildfire among them. Prepare? For what? Marina's brother barked, throwing an incredulous glance at Gabriella. Prepare to protect Sophie! She shouted, fervor igniting in her words. She's not just a victim. She carries a legacy you can't even begin to comprehend. We don't have time to waste. The tension snapped like a brittle twig, a pulse of fear racing through the air. Just then, another loud crash resonated from down the hall. A shout pierced the fray, panic rolling through the crowd. Get back! The police officers dashed toward the noise. Caution transformed into a headlong rush. What's going on? Thomas forced through the knot in his throat. Dread creeping back in. Then, in the chaos, he spotted it. A shadow looming in the doorway. A figure who felt disturbingly familiar. His breath caught. It couldn't be. "Leave her alone," the figure hissed, stepping into the light, revealing a face that shattered everything Thomas believed. It was Sophie's mother, Marina. "Marina?" His voice broke. "But I'm here to save Sophie," she interrupted, urgency vibrating in her words. "You must trust me." The room went silent, everyone frozen in disbelief. What did I miss? Thomas's mind spun, betrayal clawing at his insides. Did she know about Sophie's connection to all this? Why was she back now, out of nowhere? A rush of emotions whirled like a cyclone within him. But one question loomed above all others. Had she returned to save their daughter? Or was this a deception crafted from the shadows of their past? "Tell me the truth, Marina," he demanded, grounding himself in that moment. And as Marina's eyes met his, everything hung in suspended silence, teetering on the brink of revelation. Would this confession shatter their already broken world, or set in motion a fight against the very darkness that threatened to consume them all? "Marina!" "Oh!" His voice broke, confusion coursing through him. The air was thick with tension as everyone's gaze shifted between her and Thomas. He could hardly breathe. Part of him wanted to rush to her, to embrace her and pull her from this whirlwind of chaos. "I'm here to save Sophie," she insisted, urgency in every syllable. "Why now? Where have you been?" he demanded, still processing the reality of the moment. Marina's eyes were wide, shimmering with tears that threatened to spill. "I had to make sure she was okay." "They're coming for her, Thomas. We don't have time." Before he could respond, a loud crash reverberated through the hallway. A sound so violent it felt like a scream. The door swung open again, this time not just with a figure, but an explosion of movement. Shadows darted in the corridor, followed by men in dark suits, faces obscured by the flashing lights of the hospital's emergency response. "Get down!" one of the officers shouted, ducking behind the nearest bed as panic erupted. The room shattered into chaos. Doctors and nurses scrambled, a flood of bodies pushing everywhere. No one knew what was happening. Thomas felt his heart race, adrenaline coursing through him as he instinctively pulled Marina closer. "What is going on?" "We need to move," she shouted, tugging at his arm. But the door was held open by a shout of authority. Men in suits pouring in with intense, determined expressions that left no room for doubt. "Where is the child?" one demanded, voice cold and sharp like metal. "Who are you? What do you want?" Thomas shouted back, his protective instincts flaring. The man stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "You don't understand, Mr. Harris. The safety of that child is compromised. She's missing something crucial." "Missing?" His stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Her father's bloodline." The words landed heavily, vibrating through the room. "You didn't know?" "There's more to this than you think." Marina's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" "A connection," the man continued, unwavering. "The child carries a legacy that must be protected at all costs. She is the key to something powerful." Sum bum 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 bum. A Grandmaster's game-changing mice amount. Even now, said Marina off into Leo. And you, he pointed, you are not her protector. You are merely a pawn in this game. What? Thomas staggered backward, shock tearing through him. You see, the man continued, stepping closer. You think you've lost her, but she is not just yours. She is bound by blood, intertwined with a power you can scarcely comprehend. The words echoed in the air, a deafening silence where confusion had just been. Wait, Thomas gasped. Are you saying she's not mine? Not just yours, the man interrupted, voice low and menacing. Your blood is tainted. This legacy comes from Marina's family line. A line that reaches back generations. You have no right to her. The weight of his revelation crashed into Thomas, staggering him. This family feud wasn't just about love or custody. It was about ancient stakes he couldn't grasp. Get out, he shouted, fury and helplessness mixing. But the man stayed. I assure you, this is not a request. We're here to take her before it's too late. Get the child and let's move. Take her? Thomas felt his heart seize. Suddenly the tension snapped. A scream ran out from the hallway and chaos erupted anew. The police officers were outnumbered, the air thick with anxiety. Shots fired as the conflict spilled into the emergency room. Marina! Thomas cried out, his voice desperate. Don't let them take her. His legs felt like lead. Mind racing. This was not just about him anymore. As the swirling chaos of bodies, screams, and blaring alarms engulfed him, he faced a choice. Would he fight for a child whose blood may not be his own? Just then, amidst the pandemonium, a familiar scream echoed louder than the rest. A young, frightened cry that pierced through the onslaught. Daddy! Sophie's voice rang out. Thomas turned, heart clenching, but the realization shattered him. She was right there in the doorway, clutching the locket tightly. Eyes wide, terrified, the embodiment of innocence caught in the storm brewing around them. Bring her here! One of the dark-suited men called, reaching for Sophie. But Thomas dashed forward, instinct taking over. He'd protect her no matter what. Her legacy be damned. Then, everything froze as the air crackled with a sudden jolt of energy. Sophie's locket glimmered, a strange light illuminating the room. A wave of power surged, washing over them all like a tide. Thomas stepped back, stunned, the once ordinary locket now glowing fiercely. What had he awakened? What truth was about to be unveiled? Everything he thought he knew teetered precariously on the edge. With Sophie's cry echoing and shadows enveloping, he realized this was only the beginning of something far greater than himself. Something that could change E. Thomas felt his heart beat faster, a flood of protective instincts flooding his veins. He lunged toward her, but the dark-suited man took a step forward, his hand extended as if he could snatch her away from everybody. No! Thomas shouted, rage boiling inside him. She's just a child! In that moment, Sophie's locket blazed brighter, pulsing with an energy that surged through the room, patching everyone off guard. It lit up like a beacon. Momentarily drowning out the sounds of chaos, Thomas stumbled back, feeling the heat radiate from the charm, an otherworldly force. Is she, Marina murmured, eyes glued to the glowing locket. The dark-suited man stepped back, his expression shifting from aggression to fear. "What is happening?" he shouted, stepping away from the light. Suddenly, the glowing intensified, blinding Thomas for a heartbeat. Everyone shielded their eyes as the room filled with strange sounds, a hum. Like a swarm of bees, buzzing and vibrating off the sterile. Then with a loud crack, the locket shattered, sending shards spiraling through the air. Time seemed to freeze. Everything stopped in that instant. A mystical force rippled through the room. And then, silence. A hushed stillness enveloped them. Thomas blinked, disoriented. The police officers remained frozen in their tracks, mouths agape. But then, something terrible happened. Sophie crumpled to the ground, her small frame shivering as the locket's pieces disintegrated at her feet. "Sophie!" He rushed forward, fear engulfing him as he knelt beside her. Her eyes were wide, but they stared past him. "Daddy," she whispered, trembling. And just like that, the moment shifted. A figure appeared behind her, a shadow of a woman stepping through the hospital door. It was Marina, but different. Her essence felt warped, charged with an unsettling presence. An eerie smile danced on her lips that sent shivers down Thomas's spine. "I had to come," her voice rang, echoing, reverberating off the walls like a chant. "There's something you all must know." "What do you mean?" he stuttered, heart racing. "This bond, this connection, never just about Sophie." The laughter, a haunting note, trickled from her lips. "You thought you were protecting her? No, dear Thomas. She's the one who needs to protect you." Thomas's stomach dropped. "Protect me? For what?" But before she could respond, a rush of shadows, dark figures emerging from the wall, filled the doorway like a tide. They stepped into the flickering light with purpose, and Thomas froze as he recognized them. Friends turned enemies. Faces he once knew, now twisted with malevolence. "Marina," one of them hissed, eyes gleaming with a predatory intent. And that's when everything hit him. The twisted nature of their lives, twisted back to the choices of the past. "No!" he gasped, realization crashing over him. You were the one who... Enough! Marina's tone cut through him like ice. "You didn't have to know, but now you do. The truth is more dangerous than you can imagine." In that moment, Thomas felt his heart shatter. The shadows loomed closer, surrounds tight, intent on his daughter, his child, who seemed to be at the center of a storm he couldn't comprehend. "Get away from her!" he shouted, frenzy spilling into his voice. But nothing could prepare him for what happened next. Sophie's eyes flashed with an otherworldly light, glowing brighter than anything he had ever seen. "Daddy, trust me!" she cried. Before he could comprehend her words, Sophie lifted her hands and a blinding light erupted from her, encapsulating everyone in the room. The shadows recoiled, but it was Marina's face that twisted with a mix of horror and triumph. And just like that, in a blinding flash, Thomas felt everything shift. In an instant, he found himself standing not in the hospital room, but on distant, unfamiliar ground. A place encased in swirling mists and echoes. "What have you done?" he shouted, turning in search of Sophie, panic spilling down his spine. But the answers vanished with the sound of silence, and everything he thought he knew felt like a dream unraveling before him. Where had they gone? What had Sophie unleashed? And what truth lay hidden, waiting for him in this strange new world? Sophie's cry hung in the air, like a lifeline, piercing through the chaos swirling around them. Thomas felt his heart beat faster. A flood of protective instincts flooded in. Thomas shouted, rage boiling inside him. She's just a child! In that moment, Sophie's locket blazed brighter, pulsing with an energy that surged through the room, catching everyone off guard. It lit up like a beacon, momentarily drowning out the sounds of chaos. Thomas stumbled back, feeling the heat radiate from the charm. An otherworldly force. Is she? Marina murmured, eyes glued to the glowing locket. The dark-suited man stepped back, his expression shifting from aggression to fear. "What is happening?" he shouted, stepping away from the light. Suddenly, the glowing intensified, blinding Thomas for a heartbeat. Everyone shielded their eyes as the room filled with strange sounds. A hum, like a swarm of bees, buzzing and vibrating off the sterile walls. The lights flickered, and the air felt thick, electric. Then, with a loud crack, the locket shattered, sending shards spiraling through the air. Time seemed to freeze. Everything stopped in that instant. A mystical... And then... silence. A hushed stillness enveloped them. Thomas blinked, disoriented. The police officers remained frozen in their tracks, mouths agape. But then, something terrible happened. Sophie crumpled to the ground, her small frame shivering as the locket's pieces disintegrated at her feet. "Sophie!" He rushed forward, fear engulfing him as he knelt beside her. Her eyes were wide, but they stared past him. "Daddy!" she whispered, trembling. And just like that, the moment shifted. A figure appeared behind her. A shadow of a woman stepping through the hospital door. It was Marina, but different. Her essence felt warped, charged with an unsettling presence. An eerie smile danced on her lips that sent shivers down Thomas's spine. "I had to come." Her voice rang, echoing, reverberating off the walls like a chant. "There's something you all must know." "What do you mean?" he stuttered, heart racing. Marina's eyes were wide, shimmering with tears that threatened to spill. "I had to make sure she was okay. They're coming for her, Thomas. We don't have time." Before he could respond, a loud crash reverberated through the hallway. A sound so violent, it felt like a scream. The door swung open again. This time, not just with a figure, but an explosion of movement. Shadows darted in the corridor, followed by men in dark suits, faces obscured by the flashing lights of the hospital's emergency response. "Get down!" one of the officers shouted, ducking behind the nearest bed as panic erupted. The room shattered into chaos. Doctors and nurses scrambled, a flood of bodies pushing everywhere. No one knew what was happening. Thomas felt his heart race, adrenaline coursing through him as he instinctively pulled Marina closer. "What is going on?" "We need to move," she shouted, tugging at his arm. But the door was held open by a shout of authority. Men in suits pouring in with intense, determined expressions that left no room for doubt. "Where is the child?" one demanded, voice cold and sharp like metal. "Who are you? What do you want?" Thomas shouted back, his protective instincts flaring. The man stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "You don't understand, Mr. Harris. The safety of that child is compromised. She's missing something crucial." "Missing?" His stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Her father's bloodline. The words landed heavily, vibrating through the room. You didn't know? There's more to this than you think. Marina's breath hitched. What do you mean? A connection, the man continued, unwavering. The child carries a legacy that must be protected at all costs. She is the key to something powerful, and you, he pointed, you are not her protector. You are merely a pawn in this game. What? Thomas staggered backward, shock tearing through him. You see, the man continued, stepping closer. You think you've lost her, but she is not just yours. She is bound by blood, intertwined with a power you can scarcely comprehend. The weight of his revelation crashed into Thomas, staggering him. This family feud wasn't just about love or custody. It was about ancient stakes he couldn't grasp. Get out, he shouted, fury and helplessness mixing. But the man stayed. I assure you, this is not a request. We're here to take her before it's too late. Get the child and let's move. Take her? Thomas felt his heart seize. Suddenly, the tension snapped. A scream rang out from the hallway, and chaos erupted anew. The police officers were outnumbered, the air thick with anxiety, shots fired as the conflict spilled into the emergency room. Marina! Thomas cried out, his voice desperate. Don't let them take her! His legs felt like lead, mind racing. This was not just about him anymore. As the swirling chaos of bodies, screams and blaring alarms engulfed him, he faced a choice. Would he fight for a child whose blood may not be his own? Just then, amidst the pandemonium, a familiar scream echoed louder than the rest, a young, frightened cry that pierced through the onslaught. Daddy! Sophie's voice rang out. Thomas turned, heart clenching, but the realization shattered him. She was right there, in the doorway, clutching the locket tightly, eyes wide, terrified, the embodiment of innocence caught in the storm brewing around them. Bring her here, one of the dark-suited men called, reaching for Sophie, but Thomas dashed forward, instinct taking over. He'd protect her, no matter what. Her legacy be damned. Then everything froze as the air crackled with a sudden jolt of energy. Sophie's locket glimmered, a strange light illuminating the room. A wave of power surged, washing over them all like a tide. Thomas stepped back. What truth was about to be unveiled? Everything he thought he knew teetered precariously on the edge. With Sophie's cry echoing and shadows enveloping, he realized this was only the beginning of something far greater than himself. Something that could change everything. Suddenly, a blinding flash engulfed him. The ground beneath him seemed to shift. Thomas staggered as familiar faces rushed past him, shadows twisting like smoke. But then he felt something, a tug in his chest, pulling him back. And then darkness engulfed him. As his vision cleared, Thomas found himself standing alone in a dimly lit space. No walls, no people, just a swirling mist. Everything felt unreal, like fragments of a forgotten dream. "Where am I?" he whispered, the words echoing back. Then a figure materialized from the fog. He squinted through the haze. A woman stepped forward, familiar yet distant. She had the same eyes as Sophie. "Who are you?" he asked, pulse racing. "Your mother," she replied simply, her voice a haunting melody. "What?" My mother? His heart raced. But you died when I was a child. She smiled, a sadness mingled with warmth. I'm sorry for everything, Thomas. The truth is deeper than you think. You and Marina, this legacy, it was never just about you or her. His world tilted again. Everything he thought he knew shattered like glass. What are you saying? I came to warn you, Sophie's power isn't only inherited from Marina, it's from our bloodline too. Unbelievable! His mind spun in disbelief. No, that can't be true. You're gone. Her eyes darkened. Only in body. But I carried a secret. Secrets that could change everything. And so does Sophie. And it's crucial that you realize the truth, and quickly. He stumbled back. This is madness. I have to protect her. Time is running out, she pleaded, reaching for him, desperation etched on her face. The forces after her aren't just from Marina's family. They're hunting you too. You're more connected to this than you can imagine. He gasped. What does that mean? Your past is woven into the present. A blood pact sealed it. A price that must be paid. He could barely breathe. What price? Just them. A violent flash erupted around them. Colours swirled. Voices echoed. Shadows flickered like candle flames. The air crackled with electricity. A sharp tension awakening deep within him. And all at once, the darkness swallowed him whole again. Thomas! He heard Sophie's voice, distant, yet close. Daddy! The world went black. With a sudden jolt, Thomas found himself back in the hospital room, surrounded by chaos. Screams echoed, and figures rushed past him. Sophie was there, trembling but alive, the darkness still lingering in her eyes. Daddy! She cried, reaching out. What happened? He shouted, drawing close, desperate to protect her. But before he could reach her, the harsh light flickered again, as if a new thread awakened. The dark-suited men were in disarray, eyes wide with newfound terror. Then they turned to him, and for a brief moment, recognition flickered across their faces. One of them stepped forward, eyes blazing with fury. Now you know, he spat. It's time for you to pay the price. And as those words settled, a shudder ran through Thomas, casting doubt over everything he once held close. Was this just the beginning of an unimaginable nightmare? What other secrets lay buried in their blood? With rising panic, Thomas realized everything was different now, and he had no idea how deep this rabbit hole really went. Thomas felt the weight of a truth that shattered everything. What price? He demanded, his voice barely a whisper, the room thick with looming darkness. The dark-suited man leaned in closer, venom curling his lips. Your life, Thomas. And the life of the child. All of a sudden, shadows shifted, flickering around the hospital room like restless spirits. A low growl emanated from the back, drawing everyone's attention. The tension crackled in the air, sharp as glass. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it. A blur darting through the chaos. The police, those confronting shadows, were focused on something behind him. Thomas spun around just as a figure shot past, wrapping murky fog around them. Stay down! Someone shouted. But it was too late. The figure lunged forward, a gun glinting under the harsh lights. Get back! Thomas roared, shielding Sophie. But before he could react, a single gunshot suddenly echoed, slicing through the room. Sophie stiffened in fear, clutching the remains of her shattered locket. And then, everything went dark. The air hung still. Thomas's heart stopped. An agonizing silence filled the room. Then another sound pierced the void. A high-pitched wail, rising and falling. It was a cry for help, desperate and soaked in pain. Thomas jerked forward. When the light returned, he saw it wasn't Sophie making that sound. It was Marina, collapsed on the floor. Blood pooled beneath her as her body trembled. The realization crashed over him, like waves in a storm. "Marina!" he yelled, rushing to her side. "Not again!" she gasped, eyes wide with agony. "No, no, no! Stay with me!" Thomas barked, cradling her head. But she looked up at him, tears spilling from her eyes. "You have to trust me. I tried to protect you." And then it dawned on him, a creeping horror unimaginable. His mother's words echoed in his mind. The bloodline, the legacy, the darkness gathering around them wasn't just for Sophie. It had always been about him. "Marina!" he choked out, dread weaving through his being. "What have you done?" The dark-suited man sprang to action, seizing the moment. "It's too late for your noble intentions," he hissed, eyes glinting with malice. "You may have a connection to something greater, but it won't save you." In that instant, the floor beneath them trembled. Thomas felt a sudden rush of heat. The shadows turned to tendrils of smoke, creeping closer as if they had a life of their own. "Find the key!" the dark-suited man shouted, his voice a wicked crescendo amidst the chaos. "Bring her to us!" But just then, Thomas spotted Sophie. She was no longer frightened. She stood with an uncanny composure, her small hands raised, light flooding from her fingertips. "No!" she shouted, her voice resonating like a siren's call. Then it happened. A blinding explosion erupted from Sophie, washing over Marina. The impact sent the dark-suited men crashing into the walls. Thomas shielded his eyes, pain lancing through him. As the dust settled, he opened his eyes to a sight that would haunt him forever. Marina lay motionless, eyes wide open, but the light rapidly fading from her. "Marina!" But Sophie stepped forward, voice stronger than he had ever known. "She let you down, Dad. She chose them." "What? No!" The world spun as he tried to wrap his head around the overwhelming truth. "That can't be." But Sophie's gaze touched his, and he remembered echoes of events long past. "You don't understand. I'm not her daughter." "Not really." A wrenching pain tore through him. "What do you mean?" I'm my own," she whispered, a strange power emanating from her. "I'm the one they want. They need me to unlock everything." Everything fell silent again, the revelation crashing like thunder in his mind. Careening through memories, he realized the impossible. All this time, she hadn't just been a part of this conflict. She was at the very center, a key to some unknown destiny. Then, the world around him shifted. The shadows stretched, twisting and pulling as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. "Daddy!" Sophie cried again, the certainty in her eyes flickering like a dying light. But who was she really? And what price would he pay to keep her? The room surged with energy, and he felt himself slipping. As the truth gripped him tighter, questions loomed in the dark, clawing at the edge of his consciousness. What if everything he believed was a lie? What if Sophie wasn't the child he thought she was? And as he stared into those shimmering eyes, Thomas realized everything was about to change. The chaos in the hospital room swirled around Thomas like a hurricane. Sophie stood at the center, her eyes filled with radiant light, illuminating the darkness that threatened to engulf them. Marina lay on the ground, gasping for breath, her blood pooling beneath her. Every instinct in Thomas screamed for him to save her. Yet Sophie's presence was magnetic, a force pulling him toward her. "Daddy, listen!" Sophie's voice rang out, stronger than before. "I can control this. I can protect us." "No, you're just a child," he shouted back, panic surging. But deep down, he felt the truth of her words. She was more than that. She was the key. The dark-suited man stirred, regaining his composure. "You think you can save her?" He sneered, the shadows behind him lunging forward like hungry beasts. "You're in over your head!" As the shadows writhed closer, Sophie lifted her hands, a wave of brilliant energy exploding from her like a supernova. The force radiated through the room, causing everyone to stagger back. Thomas shielded his face, eyes squinting against the blinding light. "Stay back! This is our home!" she cried. And in that moment, the air around them shimmered, charged with a power he had never felt before. A scream tore through the room. A low, chilling sound from the dark-suited man as the tendrils recoiled. "No! You can't control it!" He stumbled, confusion etched on his face, fury boiling beneath it. But Thomas didn't budge. He knelt by Marina, cradling her. "Stay with me," he pleaded, feeling the weight of his world crushing down. "We'll get through this. You have to fight." Her eyes fluttered open, tears spilling as she whispered, "You have to believe in her. She's our chance." Tremors rippled through Thomas. He looked at Sophie, glowing, determined. The shadows flickered, retreating under her brilliance. "Sophie," he breathed, an avalanche of realization crashing over him. This wasn't just a battle. It was their legacy. With every ounce of courage, he stood, eyes blazing into the depths of the chaos. "You will not take her," he roared, channeling all his pain, hope, and desperation. "I will fight for her." The room vibrated. The dark-suited men faltered, confusion mixing with their wrath. In that glance, fear flashed across their faces as they recovered from Sophie's unexpected might. "I am not afraid," Sophie declared, stepping forward as if the very ground respected her strength. And then it happened. The shadows writhed in agony, unraveling, retreating into the corners of the room as if banished by her light. But the battle wasn't over. Behind the reeling chaos, more figures emerged, hungry and relentless. "Protect Sophie," Marina whispered, her eyes fluttering shut. The truth hung heavy between them. She was giving everything for their child. Thomas felt the weight settle in his chest, burning with urgency. "Get back!" he shouted, again, instinctively moving in front of Sophie. This was his moment to put everything aside, to choose love over legacy, to embrace the bond that connected their fates. "No more!" Sophie shouted, voice echoing, hands raised high. The power surged, enveloping them like a protective embrace. In an instant, a brilliant light erupted, spiraling and twisting, bathing everyone in warmth. Thomas wrapped an arm around Sophie, shielding her from the chaos, knowing this moment would shift everything. And then, just as quickly as it began, The light faded, leaving an air of stillness behind. The dark-suited men faltered, realizing they'd been defeated, their shadows flickering away into nothingness. Sophie turned to Thomas, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "Did we win?" He pulled her close, warmth flooding his heart. "Yes, sweetheart, we're okay." Relief crashed over him, a wave of hope pushing back the suffocating dread. But then, as reality settled, he looked down. Marina lay still, her breaths shallow, the fight draining from her body. "No, no!" Panic surged back as he knelt beside her. "Please, Marina, don't leave us! Tell her!" she gasped, trembling as if the weight of her own choices pressed upon her. "Tell her I loved her more." Tears streamed down Thomas's cheeks, grief tearing through him. "You will tell her yourself," he cried, desperate for her to hold on, for this to not be the end. "Just hold on." Marina glanced at Sophie, tears in her eyes. "Always fight for love," she whispered, slipping into darkness. Thomas felt a heaviness settle in his stomach. He looked at Sophie, still radiant, and all he could think was that this wasn't over. It was just the beginning. With shadows still lingering, he turned to Sophie, clutching her small hand. "I'll take care of us!" As they stood together, the silence echoed with promise and uncertainty. The world outside was still waiting, changes looming on the horizon, and as they embraced, a new adventure beckoned them forward into the unknown. But before he could think further, a voice called from the darkness. "You will pay for this, Thomas Harris." The threat lingered, slicing through the hope that had just begun to bloom. And as the shadows stirred around them, an ominous feeling crept in. What would they face next? But one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. And I must say, if you want to know what happens next, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss any of the exclusive stories coming your way. Hit that like button now to keep our community growing. Flood the comments with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this shocking conclusion. And share this with at least 5 friends who need to see how this unfolds. This is the moment to demonstrate your support.